Hello, everyone. I'm Sayantan. I'm part of the investment team at Stellaris Venture Partners. Today, we wanted to introduce you to one of our portfolio companies, Drizz. We have Asad, Partha, Yash, the three co-founders of Drizz over here today. They have worked across multiple product and engineering roles in companies like Gojek, Amazon, Swiggy, Meesho, and others. Welcome to all three of you. I also wanted to articulate at least our rationale for investing in Drizz. Um, I think when I was a product manager, I found testing to be very, very cumbersome. And even today, after being in the investment world for the last 4 years, I still find it to be very slow. Most tests are very flaky, brittle, and the software tools today which are being used are pretty much outdated. If I see the world and how it is moving today, LLMs have given us a capability to build agentic systems that can actually automate a lot of testing workflows. And in Asad, Partha, and Yash, we found a team with the right DNA to build a product that can solve a global problem. Today, let's start with the story about Drizz. I think the first question to you guys, how did you actually decide to work together in the first place? And how did you identify the problem statement?
Thanks, Shantan, for giving us this opportunity to tell our story. So, this is back in February 2024 when I had quit my job from Meesho. And then I was like looking to start up. And in the meantime, like it's very important to find a right co-founder. And that's like one of the hardest problems ever to solve. And I was very lucky and fortunate enough to meet Partha and Yash, my co-founders. I think the key game was so you can either meet somebody who is a friend of yours, you would have worked 15, 20 years with them. That's one way of building a company. But then you also meet people whom you do not know so much before. But the fact is the good thing about all three of us was we all three of us had quit their job. Yash was an EIR at Antler, and like being a developer in Amazon, that was a life-changing experience for him. Once and then I met Partha. Partha was also looking to start up after his stint in Mensa Labs. He wanted to start up, and we three met through a mutual friend, and that is how the three founders came into existence.
When you guys actually came together, did you decide that you will go ahead with testing as a problem statement that you wanted to solve, or were you still in the ideation phase that you wanted to nail down something?
So frankly speaking, I would not say hey, this was the only problem statement that we wanted to solve. I think the fire has to be more entrepreneurial, where you want to become an entrepreneur and how do you work backwards from that. And then we came together. We first wanted to make a good equilibrium between us. As founders, can we work together? That was like our first problem statement to solve. Once we were able to get some comfort by working together, there were few criteria which was pretty clear on what we will start up. We will do something that we understand as founders. We will do something that we can validate very quickly, right? So basis on that, and also like at that very time, GPT-4o was launched. And we saw some of the capabilities that GPT-4o had, and it really blew our mind. So you can say that was kind of our eureka moment of getting the right tool that we really wanted to explore. Now, given the problem statements that we had as engineers and product managers that we had faced over our careers, testing still was one of the bigger pain points that we had. Like, just to give you an example, in one of my previous jobs, I basically, we launched a very buggy product which basically disabled discounts for one full day on a hyperlocal food delivery app. And that was like, and it was like a huge loss of revenue. Even like for fast forward to the modern age, the same problems in more bigger shapes were there. And the thesis was pretty clear. Like you have the right problem, you have the right tool, and you now want to make a startup out of it.
Understood. And curious question, I still remember when we first got connected, you actually shared a YouTube video link where you actually shared a demo of some working version of your product. And it was, if I remember correctly, some e-commerce app, and you were using some AI agent to solve a testing workflow. So first of all, curious question, you chose testing. How did you decide between mobile versus web?
So I think, look, as a team, one thing was pretty clear between the three of us. We would want to solve tough, non-deterministic problems as a company. Now, this is a very counterintuitive insight, right? You see a problem, you find the easiest solution to that. Our whole thesis on the AI world was, if you don't solve harder problems, you won't create more long-term value as a result of it. So solving for harder problems was always the case. Now, when we looked at web, was more of a domain which was there for the past 20, 30 years, and it was very standard for that matter. And the problems there was also not very high as compared to mobile, because ultimately mobile apps are used by B2C consumers, right? End consumers. And they are very passionate, like the companies are very obsessed on consumers. So I think that is a bigger challenge on mobile. So that was like one of the thesis. And there were two other things also. The second problem was, look, I would be very frank about it, but as entrepreneurs, if you don't get feedback, it is very difficult for you to build something for somebody with longer feedback cycles. So all three of us had worked in companies which were B2C consumer companies, and that market in itself was huge. So it was a big niche. We knew what the problems were, and then we had validations, or we had like consumers of those products, which were like we could have gotten through our network as well. And that was quick validation, bigger problem, and solving that bigger problem, unlocking greater value. These three were the major driving factors for going web versus mobile, and mobile won.
Understood. And maybe Asad or Yash, you guys can answer this question. How did you go about in building the prototype, the first version, the first demo? You were sending YouTube links to most of your friends. So how was building this product? How was the prototype building actually?
Thanks for hosting us, Sayantan.
Sure.
About how did the first version look like, right? So it was a command line interface tool, and what we started when we started solving this, we started implementing the tool. What we did was first understand the state of the art. So what is it that the companies are using today? So it was locator-based scripts, and it was large code bases that was in parallel to the real code base that the company has. There was a testing code base in parallel to that. And it would have those scripts, and these scripts every time would need to be modified because the locators would change, or elements would move in the app. So we understood the real pain point first, that these are the large scripts that are causing problems, and they are very locator based, breaking the CI/CD experience of the client. And that led us to the question that how is the exact process working? So we figured out that product managers write a PRD first, and that PRD has this section where they would write what needs to be tested in simple English. And so there was this simple English which got converted into a code base at the end of the whole CI/CD. And the question was that, that we asked ourselves was, why cannot we execute this simple English instructions with what we were seeing being launched as multimodal vision language models? So the first thought was like, how do we take this English and execute it just like a human would see the screen? So we started taking these off-the-shelf products and getting some of our intelligence in there, got it together, and what we had was the first version, the command line interface tool, where what you would do is you would turn on an emulator on your local and start a ngrok, which is basically...
That was a very funny story. If Yash is not online, Drizz is not online. So we used to say, dude, like, if the power is cut, Drizz is not online. So he used to carry like every investor demo, every client demo. He used to carry his mini Mac everywhere to any consumers that we used to demo our app. And back in the day, like, AI was so non-deterministic that every demo we would be praying, oh, this should work. It should work the right way. And if it doesn't work the right way, then I would be ready with a very lengthy explanation to clients. And that was like 1 year back. It was like pretty interesting. It was like wild, wild west for us as a company. But those were interesting days.
So it was Mac Mini that was hosting the emulators where the test would run. Then we moved it outside to the testers local, where they would spin up an emulator, give us a reverse tunnel to the server, and then we would take the required data we need to run the test and run it remotely on their system so that they can see what's happening, they can interact with the emulator. And then after the CLI came the browser experience that we have today.
Understood. I think moving on, you had the solution, you had some solution, right? You still had to get the feedback that, look, will people actually write commands in English, wait for that execution, or will they prefer the existing scripts? How did you first validate this solution with your first 5 customers? And what was the process like?
I think it started way before that, right? When we started actually interacting with potential customers, right? That's when we got the feedback why testing is slow, what are the problems that are there today, and why maintainability and writing scripts are slower, and what are the problems that are there with users today. So from there, that's when we understood what do we need to do to make this entire process easy, fast, and reliable, right? And to build that, what we literally wanted to do was let's build something very simple. And that's when the CLI idea came, right? Here, let's build something very simple where people will just paste what they want to write, and this runs. And once that runs and people have a belief, then we go about building an entire bouquet of features around it, right? So the users we went to and got the feedback from, we went back to the same users after like 15 days, building a small prototype, carrying our Mac Minis machines because our servers were running on them, and told them this is what we have built and this is how it runs, and why don't you try it? And we've seen countless instances where in fact, I will give you an instance where we went to in very early stages, we went to a client where the meeting was supposed to be 1 hour, and we had like 3 people in the room, and we showed them, they started writing tests. By the end of it, there were 10 people writing countless number of scripts, trying to see what are the features that work, what doesn't work. And we were just standing there, and the meeting went for 3 hours. And that's when we realized we have built, probably we are trying to build something which these guys don't think that exists, or probably can't be built. And that was one of those first indications that we're on the right path. And that's how we started testing it out. And then I think we came up with how do we record a video, send it to people, let them get excited, and then do a pilot, right? And truth be told, till date, anyone we have sent out a video to, we haven't really not gotten a pilot done. So yeah.
So, Asad, to you, I think one of the most important things of building a software business is selling. So, how did you first, in some sense, start selling to customers, and how did you acquire them?
I'll share you a couple of stories which are pretty critical. So in one of the leadership CTO groups, one CTO of a very large company, which is more of a Deracorn in India, they posted basically, hey, I'm looking for a testing tool solution. And then somebody forwarded us that, hey, there's somebody who's looking for a solution. Once we got that input, then basically I knew people in those companies. Then I pitched to them, they pitched to them, and then they became literally our first customers, and they gave us the feedback that Partha was earlier talking about, right? Writing 10 people writing tests for 3 hours. The next big leap that really came was I went to a party, right? One of my ex-bosses had his anniversary. So he had invited me to a party, and I was there. And then there I met somebody from a Fortune 500 company, or I would say a Fortune 100 for that matter. And I just showed him my solution, and he was an EM at that company. Now, when he saw my solution, he said, yeah, why not? Our global head of mobile engineering is in Bangalore. Why don't you meet him? And that was luck. We just went ahead, met him. Although that did not materialize into an exact pilot later on, because the requirements were pretty high. But we were able to get a very good sense by working with their team for a very small phase about what the requirements are going to be. And that really gave us the confidence of building. If such a big company is looking for a solution, why not?
Got it.
Fun fact about that Fortune 100 company, we never thought he will agree to the meeting. Then the whole night we were let's prepare a PPT at least. So we started preparing a PPT.
So that was your first sales deck, I would say.
Yeah, so sales deck, rough deck, just putting it out there.
So guys, testing as a problem, testing as a problem statement started when development actually started. There have been frameworks like APM, Selenium. There are testing services companies. There are platforms, the larger ones. A couple of them are very large from India itself, like a browser stack or a Lambda test. Plus, there are software solutions across in the US and in Europe. How do you see the market today? With AI, what can you do differently? And why is it a right time to build a testing solution using AI?
So look, I think as you rightly said, this is as old as development itself. Like we internally have a framework, we say like every company has three functions: building, testing, and selling, right? So we are catering to one of them. So look, the problem has been old, but nobody has actually solved the problem, because if you look at testing, there are three things: test case generation, which is somebody saying, okay, we need to test XYZ things. Then there is test case execution, where somebody is actually writing code and executing that. And the third part is the infrastructure of things, of running it on real devices. So all of these bigger companies that you talked about have been built on the third part. And the first part is largely, the test generation part is largely more of a manual thing. I think AI will get there someday. It's not right there, but yeah, like companies are pushing the limits to that. The second part is where our interest was, right? There were people like who were building Salesforce for testing, and like testing for X, testing for Y. But with the advent of GPT-4o's vision capabilities, we realized that, hey, there is a chance that this is a very structured workflow, and using AI, we can automate that end to end. So I think it all stemmed from our consumer obsession. That, hey, like let's solve for the consumer, let's make it very easy for our users to use our tool. So it then, using that as an obsession, we figured out that the best way to build a new framework in this new world, which really tackles the problem and doesn't have the problems of what frameworks were used in the past. Like for example, you said APM. APM is as good as locators. If a developer doesn't define a good locator in the code, then you can't run any testing framework on top of it. APM can't test for Google Maps. They can't test on mobile games, right? So that is where we had this whole hypothesis that if we can understand the screen as a human being would, we would be able to basically help users write these tests in plain and simple English, and also we can execute that at a very, very high level of accuracy. So that is typically where we see. Now what is going to happen in the future is there is going to be, AI is going to disrupt a lot of these companies which are using frameworks of yesteryears. I mean, full respect to all of these companies. But one of the paradigm shifts that has happened, you just can't be an AI company by saying some XYZ testing.ai. I mean, the mindset of being an AI company is very different. How do you basically integrate everything AI into your product? Like as example, like for example, one of our obsession is ki, hey, if a user is asking why a test has failed, it's a failure on us as a product together. And we want to automate that part as well. Ki, hey, explanation of pinpointing where the failure of a test case is. So that's consumer obsession, problem obsession that we drive. And we feel that companies such as us in the new age using a new framework have a lot of disruption can be made in this.
Tomorrow, do you plan to actually go into web as well?
As they say never for anything. I think, look, it doesn't matter what we solve for. We want to be an outcome-based company, which is helping our clients test their services, test their code, test their product, and providing more value to our end customers. I think the way we started it, mobile is a very hard problem, and there is more value in cracking hard problems, right? So that is our first way. It's more of a matter of prioritization, not saying no to anything. But when the time comes when we feel that our extension is very easy, like for example, like in testing in mobile as well, there is Flutter, there is iOS, there is Android, there is React Native. I mean, we were able to build on all Android platforms. When we had to switch to iOS, the change was very minimal. So I think with that paradigm into picture, like we can definitely, our technology helps us scale to web very easily. It's just the form factor that we may have to change. But yeah, like never say never. Like build a moat. I mean, the mobile market is big enough. Build a moat in that and keep moving forward. If the opportunity presents, why not?
Would it be then fair to say that in 5 years, every technology company can become a customer of yours?
I think yes. I mean, look, one of the harder problems that we have right now in the marketing world, and this is one of the problems we have faced, do you have a mobile app? So when I meet a customer in person, and the first question that I ask him, do you have a mobile app, right? So I think it is a hard problem to find mobile apps like just only. But I think when you really want to become a mass company and really create a big enough brand, some of our competitors who were only mobile first also became mobile plus web as well.
Great question for you, Partha. What are some of the key design choices that you have made in your product? And how did you arrive at those choices? Was it a hypothesis that, look, this is what you wanted to build, or it came more from your customer insights?
I think from the start, we really wanted to build a consumer obsessed company, right? And all of us have come from building great consumer obsessed products across our journey. And so before doing anything, as I said, we went out to the customers, just asked them what do they do, how do they write tests today, and kind of trying to understand what could be better, right? And that kind of helped us take the design choices, right? And building a prototype, then kind of improving the UI over a period of time is something that came with that design decision making, right? So if I have to get a little bit deeper into it, right? What does a tester really want, or what do we really wanted our user to do? We basically wanted to come up with a vision where anyone should be able to write a test as long as they understand the flow, and should be able to execute and view the reports at the end of it, right? And that's the end-to-end scenario of executing a test case, writing a test case, and seeing the results. So we started with allowing users to facilitating users to write in plain simple English, right? And having the ability to run it on emulators which will be side by side on that same platform, so that while the user is actually writing, he or she is able to actually see what is happening on the screen, taking the feedback out of it. If it is not running, then going back and correcting it. So this entire small screen is actually facilitating the entire journey of a tester, right? And that's something that does not come out of the box for everyone that is a tester out there, or that's an automation tester out there today. So I think that's something that stuck with our customers actually as well. And one of the feedbacks we have gotten from our customers is like, your UI is intuitive, super simple, there is no clutter at all, you just show what is needed. And that's what we really wanted always.
Do you believe that tomorrow, I was a product person myself and I used to do functional testing on devices. Do you believe that today, or let's say a few months down the line, even product managers or designers will start using your product because they also do test, what has been developed?
Yes. So I think if you go back, right, historically and traditionally, even today, Drizz customers, right, generally our users are manual QAs or automation QAs, because there is a designated roles in organizations today, which basically says these are the guys who are custodians of quality, right? But at the same time, there is a paradigm shift that is happening. People are moving into left shift testing. So now mobile engineers are testing their product before even they give it to the QAs as well, right? So it is totally possible. There are organizations where product managers also start owning some amount of testing. Today, designers also do visual testing. So I think it is totally possible, as and when and also I think that AI has enabled that organizations will keep getting smaller, and a lot of people will start doing a lot of multitasking. So I believe it is totally believable that in future, product managers, designers, coders, all might it might become a very shared responsibility, right? And everyone would be actually testing, and our product, which basically allows anyone to write in natural language and test it so easily, I think that's the vision we have literally created with, like, whoever you are, as long as you know the product, you can test it out.
So, Asad, a question to you. What are some of the key design choices that you have made in the product?
So I think, see, building an AI product which is non-deterministic in nature was a very tough challenge. And the bigger thing was ki how do we design an interface which is intuitive as well as functional and solves the problem for our users. So there were two things. One was mostly how does the design of it looks like, right? So I think we had to take inspiration from a lot of tools, and the one that we really took an inspiration from was Grammarly. So Grammarly uses this interface ki, hey, if you write anything, it just shows you ki, hey, this is a better way of writing, and it auto corrects itself. So we use that behavior especially for people writing the test in plain English. So that was one thing that we took from them. The other aspect was our obsession for the user to make it in one single interface. Now, this is no such feat. It's not a very small feat for companies to do, where you pack all the three critical elements when you run a test. One is you writing the test in an editor, then the results of the test streaming in the form of logs, and then the emulator streaming at the side of the things. And you can also interact with the emulator as well as run automated test on that. So putting all these three together in one single interface was a very tough problem. We had to work with certain external partners to enable cloud-based emulators, which was the first of its kind approach. And that paid us dividends at the end, because it became so simple for people to use. Like nobody, wherever we won a lot of contracts or basically trumped against few competitors that our customers evaluated us against, the reason for them to use us was this intuitive interface that we had built.
So, a question for you, Yash. Uh, can you actually very briefly talk about the technology stack that Drizz has built?
Absolutely. So I'll start with the basic infrastructure where the tests run, right? So the emulators or the real devices, right? We have a cloud where we run these images of whatever Android device OS you want to run the test on, or iOS, and then there is a WebRTC stream that we do to the browser, and make sure that the emulator is interactive, or the interface that the tester is seeing is interactive. And then what you'll see is a simple editor where you can write scripts. All that gets saved into GitHub, gets synced into GitHub, just like your code would sit in GitHub. These are now English scripts or prompts sitting in GitHub. Then at the core, if I come towards the AI side of things, there are vision language models, lots of them, right? Because different models work well on different kind of environments. For example, some apps could be very heavy on icons, and they would not have a lot of text. So does your model understand those icons? Then there are scenarios where you would have to kind of act very fast. For example, think of a video player where the controls come and go very fast, right? And your model needs to be fast there. So, and in addition to understanding the context, which is very kind of a slow process, you need a model which is specialized at understanding fast and acting. So there is a different model for that use case.
Yash, can you actually describe some interesting use case where you guys solved a very hard engineering problem? If you can just walk us through some of that.
Think of map testing, right? Let's say my app is a very map-based app, and I have to test scenarios like, is my pin dropping at the right place? The pin that can be dragged on the map, like which you see in a lot of apps these days. Is it interactive? For example, if I have two pins and the route is being marked, is the route correctly indicating tolls, or if there are tolls on that route, or there are no tolls? Is there traffic, no traffic, right? Then you would have cases where, let's say, I'm going for fishing in some geography. Where can I find a certain type of fish in that place? So those are kind of scenarios where there are a lot of heavy terrains, which are not understandable to a regular traditional script-based solution out there. So you need context, you need modality, and that's one interesting use case that we have been able to solve with our vision approach. The other one is, let's say, drawing charts on a trading application. So how do you draw those trend lines or those candles? How do you observe those candlesticks? How do you find the patterns on a trading app and place, or put or call whatever you want to do on a trading app? So these are again a custom map, a custom graph that is very fast changing, and you need to act fast, right? Then third is like pop-ups. For example, pop-ups is it's
a very common thing.
A very common thing in app, and it's very random as well. So how do you, for your clients, handle those random pop-ups? Decide what to do based on the context of the test. For example, do not provide a permission, close the ad, and then let the test continue and not break the test and then go back to them saying that please fix this pop-up, right? So you need to be self-healing such scenarios. So these are three that come to my mind, which we have been able to solve with that additional vision, and which are difficult to solve with traditional.
One more question, and maybe Yash, you can take it up, or Asad, you can. I think when even we were speaking to you and we saw the first demo of the product, it seemed to us that look, plain English, is it too similar to scripting? I mean, people are already used to scripting. Why do they want to actually put in an input in plain English? So, how do you differentiate between both of these things?
Between locator based and scripts. Yes. So the trends that we were observing with our customers was that the CTOs wanted faster release cycles, and this parallel code base that was very locator based was making things slow. So every time, in their CI/CD, if the app has changed, which is very common in, let's say, Indian apps, the UI changes a lot, item moves a lot, and that locator would change. The whole testing team would go back to those scripts, change the code base, raise a PR, and get that test into the pipeline. This whole process was leading to 3-4 weeks release cycles. And the CTOs were also having this problem where only a specific group of coding or developers could change those scripts. Product managers could not change those scripts. There were other trends like shift left, where CTOs wanted ideally for testing to be more collaborative, and anybody who knows what to test should be able to tell what to test. And isn't that the concept of AI, right? Let people who have the expertise contribute to actually getting the product implemented. So that's what we kind of observe, that people are looking for a solution which is away from that 1,000 lines of, for example, this 270 line of English script would have been at least 1,000 line of code. So there were clear call outs that something like this can really work out. And the only thing is that people write English differently. So how do you make sure that what one person is trying to say is also their intention, which is where the Grammarly kind of solution comes in. So
one obsession that I can tell you, like all companies in our space would say, okay, first say tap and then say what you want to tap. We said no, that's not an AI first approach. We say, hey, you write click, you write navigate, you write tap, whatever, you write select, whatever you write, we will not give you structured formats. All our competitors right now are giving people structured format to write their English. We said no, that's not. So that's the obsession that we had, how we simplify things for our end users, and that is why people love using our product. And as you mentioned, I mean, we were also concerned about whether the writing thing will fly or not. But frankly speaking, after having seen our users use it across both geographies, India and international, we are pretty certain that this is a good way to scale.
Got it.
Also, like today, there are 3 layers, if you call it. Like, there is a pure natural language, then there is coding, and then there is the in-between stuff, right? Where people are like tap on, click on this ID. So the problem with the middle one is basically that either you write proper English, right? Otherwise, if you say tap on a type, and if someone does something wrong, or they want to add some more context, okay, this is a button which shows as active in some people for some people, and for some people it shows activate. I want to write this. Now, either I have to literally fall back to language, or I can literally write it should be activate or active, right? So depending upon that, basically natural language become a natural choice for us. Let the user provide the context of what they really want to do, and let us figure out what to run and when to run. Yeah.
So guys, you are an AI company. Today we are seeing AI companies are very lean compared to traditional companies. A lot of things are being automated. What are some of the initiatives that you are taking internally to actually automate different workflows within your company that makes you remain or keeps you lean in some sense?
I'll give you 3 examples. The first example is one of our non-engineers in our team responsible for customer success literally used Windsurf, coded the entire database and published metrics on Metabase. Like, he was not a coder, he just learned it, and he just gave us a makeshift Metabase dashboard to see how data is tracking on Drizz, and helped us with our obsession with customers and data. That's number 1 example. Number 2 is typically we saw a lot of our time goes on to answering queries for our customers. And when we looked at what is this answer about, this is about something not working, some failure happening. Now, with that problem, what we basically said, we put an engineer to the task. His function or his job was to ensure that like nobody asks a question to any human being for what the problem was, surface the reasons for failure of a test or some issues on the product, surface that automatically to the client. And we literally solved that, and it kind of saved a lot of time and bandwidth for me, Partha, personally, when we look into answering questions for our consumers. So it saved us a lot of time. Maybe the third option, I think Yash can talk about basically how we made Jarvis. That could be a good story, Yash.
So the way we look at the whole,
What is Jarvis?
yes, I'll get to that. So I'll explain how we look it internally within the company. So there is this pre-development cycle where you are designing stuff, you are figuring out what is the right architecture. Then there is when you are implementing and raising PR reviews, which is code reviews, and then after you have done it, you deploy, and after you deploy it, you do a QA testing internally of your own feature. So I'll talk about the design part first. So when the developer is designing, they are now supposed to write PRDs for themselves, right? That what are they thinking would be the impact of this feature on the customer. So that part we have automated using different models, that how can developers write PRDs themselves and have that initial clarity of the impact, and working backwards from the customer. Second, in the development phase, when they have implemented stuff and they've raised a PR, how do they include most of that context from design phase so that the reviewer is able to review it fast and keep the development cycle fast, which you will see are these are startups like these are springing up in the US. So this is another product that we have internally, and once the PR is raised, now every daily stand-up we track that which PR is open on whom. So for example, if this developer has raised it, this is with this reviewer for the next action item, and where is the ball in the code exactly, and how much days has it been, just to keep the velocity of the development. So this is post the PR is raised, and then once you take it to QA, you have this different one boxes where different decoupled groups can test and make sure that the pipeline is unblocked, right? So Jarvis is basically the whole PR review thing, which figures out what to populate on a PR so that the review is fast, who is it open on, and how much time is it taking to close it.
And you've built this internally?
Yeah.
I think we have a philosophy in the company ki if there is a slightest possible chance that AI can be used for achieving any task, go ahead and do it. Do not use human bandwidth, be it building a UI, be it coding it out, be it prospecting, be it creating videos, creating voiceover videos. Everything should be done by AI, and we really want to build a lean organization, and we want to make sure that everyone who comes into the organization should appreciate, understand the AI, and whatever facilitation that has to be done from outside, we'll keep doing it.
Understood.
Yeah. So everyone should understand code, AI, and that's the main motto.
Got it. You guys have just started selling in the US. Any insights of how to sell your product in the US? How do you get those 5 customers again in the US? What is different versus India?
What is very important is building a very trusted network. Like if you're from India, very difficult to basically do anything in the US because people don't know you and you're not natively registered over there, right? So I think one of the things that I figured out was pretty well was network with a lot of people whom I knew. Then I used to ping them, try to meet people. So meeting in person is absolutely important.
Understood.
Look, as a founder, you have to innovate. One story that I had was, I mean, yes, like I'm not natively based out of the US, and I don't have like our competitors would be giving talks over there. So what I did was I attended the talks of one of my competitors, and then I knew ki, but after the talk, like literally 8-10 folks went and met him. And I knew ki now, if those 8-10 people, if you go ahead and meet them and pitch your product, I mean, you just filtered out of like 1,000 people who were interested in testing. You filtered those 10 people. So I pitched to them, met them, and converted at least 2 of them into paying customers. So yeah, that was the story. But yeah, I think it's hustle to start with. But then there are certain organic ways also which are more scalable that we are trying to see. So yeah, it's fun actually.
So last question, and I'll go across all the 3 of you, and maybe starting off with Partha. what is the future that you see for Drizz in the next year or couple of years?
See, as we discussed, we are starting to solve with mobile, right? Once we are done with mobile, then there will be different uh, ways this can chart out, right? But at the core, what we really want to build is a testing layer for the world, where every code that goes out from every company that's out there should be tested by Drizz. Now, when I say that, what I mean is every aspect of testing, right? Be it functional testing, be it visual testing, be it security, be it API testing, right? At the end of the day, the user flow should be, if you have a APK and if you have a document about what exactly your API app does, ideally a product like Drizz should be able to tell you, okay, these are the flows that needs to be tested. These are the flows that are missing in your org right now. These are, and while running these flows, I found all these security flaws. I found these visual errors and all these things, right? And if we can do that, I think we'd be truly building a product which basically can touch every code that is out there.
Got it. Asad?
So I think the future vision of Drizz is as AI generated code is going to take center stage. What is happening here is AI generated code has still a lot of problems. A lot of time is spent on debugging and testing that code. And that code is not of that particular quality that you can directly ship to the consumers. So Drizz will become the checker layer on the internet, where we will use a very different user first approach to test what is going to be shipped out to consumers. That is going to be our key focus. And I think not only like testing as a platform, we will also evolve into testing and fixing so that we can pinpoint like the issues in the stack. So overall, how do you save the time of the developer, be it in identification of bugs and also help them in fixing those bugs? So I think overall complete end to end is where we will see.
Finally, Yash.
So what we want to do more of is explore the limits of what we are doing. For example, today, as I told, there are use cases where the inference need to be very fast and we need to act very fast, right? So we want to scenarios like games, right? There are Android mobile games. How do we make our models good enough so that they are able to play games maybe and have another space open up for us? Also, we are also seeing this trend where mobile apps are becoming omni-channel, as in they are not just mobile apps. Similar experiences there on desktop and then on XR, which is the headsets. So emulators for headsets, and how does testing happen for XR? Basically, that's another avenue we want to keep our eyes open to. And third thing would probably be do more stuff on edge, as in these devices don't have so much of hardware and bandwidth, network bandwidth. So how can you get models to be on device and less network dependent? So these three would be the limits we want to push further.
So thanks a lot for coming down over here and sharing your views. It was lovely interacting with you. Excited for the next few years as you continue to build Drizz.
Thanks, Shannon.
Thanks,
Thanks, Sayantan. Likewise.
Thanks.